Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctor's Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctor's Hospital. Always there for you. Call 949-6066. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Kirk Market. Experience a world of choice.
We ask our listeners and viewers to avoid any statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use indecent language or make any statement that is false or misleading. Call 1-800-534-8255, 949-6990, 949-8037, or WhatsApp us on 925-3261.
Live from Radio Cayman Studio.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you.
For the Record.
Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
With Orrett Connor.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is For the Record.
For the Record. 1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, O land of soft, fresh breezes and verdant trees. So fair. Today is Monday, the 12th day of August 2024, right here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. We hope and we trust that everyone had a restful, peaceful, enjoyable weekend. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, we urge you to please be extremely cautious, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or if you're operating any type of motorized vehicle. Please ensure that you observe the rules of the road. If you do so, folks, the life you save may just be your own. For those of you who are celebrating a birthday today, or if you celebrated one over the past few days, we want to wish you a happy birthday or a belated happy birthday, whichever is applicable. And to remind you that the For the Record birthday shout-outs brought to you by Coca-Cola, who are proud to support your birthday shout-outs. Coca-Cola available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Wholesalers. You should accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Those of you who have lost loved ones, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you. We hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these extremely challenging times, and that the memories of your loved ones will be a blessing. Those of you who are ill and are either at home or at a medical facility here in the Cayman Islands or overseas, we do wish you a speedy recovery as well. So, folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and, by extension, For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am host Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, phone lines are open. Our toll-free number, 1-800-534-8255. Also 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp number 925-3261. And of course, sitting on the other end of the phone lines as well as behind the controls is none other than that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson as well, waiting to take your calls. So, first of all, the birthday shout-outs, again, proudly brought to you by Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola is available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga wholesalers. You should accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Today. Yes, it is today. Today, Miss Celia Yates is celebrating her birthday. Miss Celia, happy birthday to you. Huge family, originally from the back as well, and she's celebrating her birthday today. Also, we see that Mr. Mitchell McPhail is celebrating his birthday today also, and birthday greetings are coming from his mom, Miss Ruth James, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and other family members and friends. And may God continue to bless you always, to see many, many more birthdays. They say to you, enjoy your birthday as well. We have several other birthdays coming up in the month of August as well. And of course, we will continue to share those with you when they are approaching or when they actually on the day that they occur, if For the Record is on the air that day as well. And again, once more to remind you that the For the Record birthday shoutouts brought to you by Coca-Cola, who are proud to support your birthday shoutouts. Coca-Cola available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga wholesalers. You should accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. I believe we may have a few more birthday shoutouts as well. Let's look and see. Okay. There's a voice note there, Miss Susan. You want to check that voice note because there's a photograph accompanying it as well, and we may want to share that with our audience. Meanwhile, my question is, and I'll answer it very quickly, so it'll be more of a rhetorical question than anything else. How many of you know which British parliamentarian is now the Minister for the Overseas Territories, or which British politician is now the Minister for the Overseas Territories? We haven't heard a whole lot about it. Some may wonder, well, has the Labour government forgotten the Cayman Islands, or are they going to leave us and other overseas territories to operate on their own? Well, we know that in the Royal Gazette, an article published by Sarah Lagan on the 9th of August, that would have been Friday, that the Bermudan Premier, as well as premiers from other overseas territories, have virtual meeting with the new Minister for the Overseas Territories, and I will share that article with you. I'm sure that the CIG, Cayman Islands government here, at some point in time will share the information with us as well. We do know that the Premier of the Cayman Islands, Honorable Juliana Connolly, was off island at the time, but we are made to understand that she participated in that Zoom or video call or meeting with the new minister. So, the Royal Gazette reported that their Premier, David Burt, attended a virtual meeting with Britain's Minister for the Overseas Territories, in which self-determination, devolution, and autonomy were discussed. The Premier joined in the meeting on Wednesday with leaders of other overseas territories as they met Minister Stephen Doughty, I think Doughty, Doughty. I'm pronouncing that wrong, let me know, for the first time since he was appointed under the new Labour government, Stephen Doughty. Okay. Overseas territories leaders, as members of the United Kingdom Overseas Territories Association, jointly request meeting to discuss relevant issues and strengthen the partnership with the British government. We do know that one of our four premiers here in the Cayman Islands once described what's called the partnership as a sinking ship rather than a partnership. So it looks like we're back partnerships again. Mr. Doty outlined the core principles that aims to establish, including respect for the rights of the overseas territories, the right to self-determination, belief in devolution and autonomy, and principles of partnership. He said that there was a need for open and frank conversations, ensuring that decisions affecting overseas territories were made inclusively and transparently. He announced that the new Labour government would establish a more inclusive consultation plan than that of the Conservative Party before it, saying he aimed to better incorporate the diverse needs and perspectives of the overseas territories. Mr. Doherty also announced immediate actions to address overseas territories requests, including enhanced engagement around Conference of the Parties or COP. Other matters included improved public sector capacity through training and mentoring programs and addressing visa processing times with the Home Office. It was encouraging to hear directly from Minister Doherty about his commitment to respecting the rights of overseas territories, ensuring voices are heard, opening access to additional resources, and meeting with overseas territories leaders individually to discuss the unique needs and issues that impact each territory. This is a quote. "It was a pleasure working with Mr. Doherty while he was the shadow cabinet, and I look forward to continuing to develop positive relations with him and his cabinet colleagues as they take office. The government of Bermuda," just a quote now for Premier of Bermuda, "the government of Bermuda is committed to working productively and collaboratively with the Minister and the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office to ensure that the interests of the people of Bermuda are effectively represented and addressed." Plans for the upcoming Joint Ministerial Council were also discussed during the meeting. Hosted by the British government, the annual meeting brings together leaders of the overseas territories. Mr. Doherty assured it would not conflict with COP28. This year's meeting dates are proposed to be December 9th and 11th. So it's usually held earlier than that, but looks as if they're going back to the December date again. He also underscored the importance of enhancing overseas territories representation at international forums such as COP29. The T leaders collectively raised issues including the need for direct engagement with Mr. Doherty, access to finance for climate resilience, and the development of a new white paper. They also emphasized the importance of bilateral compacts to address the needs of each overseas territory. Well, so that is what has been reported in the Royal Gazette at the Bermuda newspaper. That was an article that was published in the Royal Gazette on Friday, the 9th of August. And like I said before, we should expect to hear something from CIG here in the Cayman Islands about this as well. I was really surprised that nothing came out from the governor's office in relation to announcing who the minister for the overseas territories was, or maybe it came out and I didn't see it. I could be, wrong. I could be mistaken, but I stand to be corrected on that issue as well. Sometimes it appears as if getting timely information here in the Cayman Islands is like pulling a tooth. We need to stay ahead of things, or if not ahead, then be in lockstep with those as well. I believe we have a few more birthday greetings here. Belated birthday greetings to Bransley Scott, and also happy birthday tomorrow to Sarah Membrino as well. Do we have other ones before we go to the commercial break? So we are also asked to send birthday shout out to Dwayne Lee, and his birthday was yesterday, August the 11th. Birthday greetings are coming from the Lee family, Ebanks family, and the Brown family as well. With that, folks, we're going to take a commercial break. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
Caymanians have historically taken pride in their community spirit and willingness and ability to assist their own. However, this traditional sense of community support began to disintegrate as the island grew and modernized. Recognizing the need to assist, under the lobbying efforts of Miss Sybil Joyce Hilton, the Cayman Islands government created the Probation and Welfare Unit in 1964 with a budget of £2,240. The need for services continued to grow, and by the new millennia, social services were operating with a staff of 200 people and a budget of $12 million. Ms. Joyce, affectionately known as the Mother of Probation, successfully lobbied the government to make changes to the way juvenile cases were processed in the court system, helped establish a probation office as well as a juvenile court system, and became the first probation and welfare officer in the country. In 1968, Ms. Joyce was honored with the Cayman Islands Certificate and Badge of Honor and received the designation of MBE in 1978. In 2011, she was designated as a National Hero of the Cayman Islands, and in 2013 was honored as Youth Services Pioneer by the Cayman Islands government.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
She hear clunk and her car stop. I was just about to send her some money, so I send it straight to her Gent money transfer card. It cost me less, and perhaps she use the card, pay the garage right away. She'll get discount through the Gent Rewards program in Jamaica. This card make things easy. You can even get funds at any multi-link ATM.
JN Money Transfer Card. Fast, affordable, convenient. Tell your loved ones in Jamaica about it. Sign up is free.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
This is For the Record.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio yet. We have about less than 8 minutes before we go to our 8 o'clock news. After 8 o'clock news, we should have in the studio with us the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Nick Gent. He will be here discussing the Orrett virus disease. And of course, the government on the weekend or on Friday did put out a press release in relation to the virus as well. And it is fairly long, but I won't share that with you because I don't want to go ahead of the Chief Medical Officer in relation to this. I'll leave this all up to him. But, of course, it is extremely important. And here in the Cayman Islands, as well as everywhere, it is always good to get ahead of something. Don't wait until it arrives for you to discuss it. And, again, being as transparent as possible, you know, as far as things go. So Dr. Nick Gent will be in the studio with us starting at 8:15 to talk about the Orrett virus. Meanwhile, let's go back to that article in the Royal Gazette about the meeting the Minister for the Overseas Territory, the new Labour minister who was a shadow minister before. Of course, Labour, since 2010, had not been in control or in government, leading the government in the United Kingdom. That would have been after the sharing. We had Tony Blair, and then you had Gordon Brown. That between 1997 and 2010, you had Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. There was mention made in that news article about a new white paper coming out. It'll be interesting to see what that, when it comes out, what that new white paper will entail in relation to the relationship between the United Kingdom and its overseas territory. In the press release, we heard talk about devolution. We heard words like self-determination. It'll be interesting to see what emanates from all of that as well. Good to see also that they have shifted the dates, even though for people from the Caribbean having to go up to the United Kingdom in December in that cold weather, unless you like the cold, it's not all that great. And because of the usual inclement weather during that period of time, the Joint Ministerial Council, which was known by a different name prior to that, the OTCC, Overseas Territories Consultative Council, it was held earlier in the year, around about September. Last meeting, we saw lots of conflicts with other issues, and I don't think that Overseas Territories leaders were all that happy because they really weren't given the attention that they should be given, because in these meetings, you really want to have ministers involved in it rather than the heads of departments. And it'll be interesting to see the approach that the Labour government takes as far as its position with the overseas territories is concerned as well. And again, I'm going to say this. People of the Cayman Islands deserve better. They should know about these things. We have not seen anything publicly issued. I'm not sure whether or not the governor is on vacation at this point in time, and whether or not any acting governor would take on this responsibility, or whether or not the governor's office would wait until her return for these things to be issued in terms of advising who the new minister for the overseas territory is, who that minister is. It has been customary. In the past, we have always been informed of this information because the minister for the overseas territory may not necessarily sit in cabinet itself, in cabinet, major cabinet meetings. And sometimes when a new government comes into power, they may take a few days, maybe even a week or so before we know who the minister for the overseas territories is. We have gone way past that now, and nothing has been announced locally in that regard, nothing to my knowledge. And so far, no one has corrected me either online or by calling in to say otherwise. And some may see that as good. UK is leaving us to operate on our own. We're not interested in who the minister for the overseas territories is, because that is another layer of the legacy of colonialism, or whatever. Some may think that way. Others may say, at least we could know who the minister is. And I'm sure that the Premier's office will be sharing with the people of the Cayman Islands about her interaction with the new minister that was held virtually last week as well. Like I said, the Premier was off island at the time, but did participate in the meeting as well. Folks, with that, we've reached top of the hour, 8 o'clock news. When we return, we will have Dr. Nick Gent, Chief Medical Officer, in the studio talking about Orrett virus. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time by Foster's is 8 o'clock. All right, class, pay attention. School is back in session, and it's time to get back to school ready with Foster's.
Foster's is embracing the school spirit with all the essentials like backpacks, stationery, lunch kits, and more.
And online, treat yourself to our blog at livewell.fosters.ky to help kids navigate back to school anxiety and start the school year with confidence.
And any parents hoping to spend more time at home, there's always fresh delivery from Foster's Go.
Think you got all that? We'll test you on it later.
Get ready for a great fresh start with Foster's.
Information, entertainment, inspiration.
Covering Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac.
Since 1976 till now.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm April Cummings.
We have a country to be proud of, and we got to continue to keep pushing that year on year after year after year.
Deputy Premier the Honourable Andre Ebanks at last week's Cayman Connection Making Waves Awards, encouraging Caymanians locally and abroad to raise and hold their heads high.
You're not coming from some sleepy little jurisdiction that's some tax haven that doesn't know what it's doing. You're at a sophisticated, responsible financial services center that has clients that have the pedigree of global around the world. You're now in a country that's on the map in the Olympics. You're now in a country that's now bringing world-class healthcare here. We are now an economic powerhouse. So you all walk with that stride. The award that you get from Cayman Connection, wear that with pride. And I love the new pin, Caymanian Proud.
The event recognizes the successes of young Caymanians overseas, and this year highlighted 9 individuals for their excellence across a variety of categories. Tune into Radio Cayman on Sunday evenings as we share their stories on our weekend newscast. The Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing, Infrastructure, Transport and Development confirms Cabinet has endorsed B3 as the preferred route for the East-West Arterial Project. The ministry says the, quote, strategic decision follows a meticulous evaluation process where 4 potential routes were considered to ensure the optimal balance between infrastructure, development, and environmental stewardship. In a media advisory Sunday morning, the ministry said B3 was selected after a, quote, rigorous data-driven analysis highlighted its superior alignment with Cayman's long-term infrastructure vision, saying it aligned more closely with the original long-term Gazette plan and minimized the impact on lands owned by the National Trust. The ministry also says the route offers more favorable conditions for construction, reducing potential challenges and costs during the development phase, ensuring a smoother and more efficient project execution. With the approval of B3, the project now moves to its next phase, which will involve detailed planning design and continued stakeholder engagement to ensure the development proceeds with, quote, full transparency and community involvement. A leadership transition at the Progressives National Council meeting this weekend with the Honourable Roy McTaggart announcing his decision to step down as leader of the Progressives at the next party conference in January. He will continue as party leader until then. Mr. McTaggart will also be stepping down as Leader of the Opposition at the next Parliament meeting and is nominating his deputy, Mr. Joey Hugh, as successor for both roles. The party confirmed that all elected members of the Progressives Opposition support the transition, which provides Mr. Hugh with the opportunity to better prepare to lead the Progressives into the upcoming election. Mr. McTaggart expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to serve as Leader of the Progressives and Leader of the Opposition, describing it as a tremendous honor. That is your latest local news at this hour. I'm April Cummings. Now to the BBC for stories making headlines around the world.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. A growing number of Russian civilians are being moved from their homes near the border as Ukraine continues a week-long offensive. The governor of the Belgorod region warned against panic, but said people needed to move for their own safety. A BBC correspondent on the Ukrainian side of the border said the surprise incursion had boosted morale. In Greece, the mayor of the historic town of Marathon near Athens says it's been engulfed by a wildfire and is facing catastrophe. 7,000 residents are being evacuated from their homes. A Kenyan cult leader is on trial for manslaughter over the deaths of more than 400 of his followers. Paul Nthenge Mackenzie appeared in court with more than 90 other defendants. They've pleaded not guilty. A senior opposition politician in Tanzania, Tundu Lissu, and officials from his Chadema party have been arrested on the eve of a youth rally. International airlines have suspended more flights to parts of the Middle East because of fears of a regional conflict. Air France and the Lufthansa Group are among those to have cancelled services to Beirut and other cities. Turkey says it's killed 17 members of the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, in airstrikes over northern Iraq. The group, which is designated a terrorist organisation by the US and the EU, has been waging a war of insurgency against the Turkish state over the last 4 decades. Police officers in Bangladesh have returned to work 6 days after going on strike following the ousting of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina last week. Officers have reported for work at about 600 police stations across the country. And Indonesia's president-elect says he's committed to completing the new capital begun by his predecessor. Prabowo Subianto warned that it would be a long and difficult job, but he said the city would be functioning within 5 years. And that's the latest BBC World News.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman with the latest up-to-date, accurate news and information. For your convenience, the headline news will be repeated on our sister station, Breeze 105.3 FM, weekdays at 8:30 a.m. Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or download the Radio Cayman app in the App Store or log on to www.radiocayman.gov.ky and stay connected to what's happening in the community. Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Sports. Stay up to date on your sports news with Radio Cayman Monday through Friday at 7 a.m., 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. It's all about sports.
Your sports news is brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Village. What's up your prescription refills at 929-5045.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by
CG Britcade, where people come first.
Good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 86 degrees. Relative humidity is 78%. The barometric pressure is 29.95 inches and rising. The wind is east at 7 knots. Overnight low temperature was 84 degrees. Synopsis indicate light to moderate easterly winds and seas, along with an increase in showers from this afternoon over the Cayman area, associated with a tropical wave moving across the northwest Caribbean. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area, moving southwest. The National Hurricane Center is issuing advisories on potential tropical cyclone 5, which at last check was located at 14.6 north, 54.3 west. Max winds are 30 miles per hour, and it's moving west at 26 miles per hour. It's about 645 miles east-southeast of Antigua. This system poses no threat to the Cayman Islands. Now, the forecast for the Cayman Islands for today, calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and possible thunder, and temperatures will be in the low 90s with a heat index near 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Pretty much the same for tonight, partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and temperatures dipping to the low 80s tonight. Your winds will be east to southeast 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Today's low tide will occur this morning at 9:13, high tide this evening at 5:36, and a low tide again tonight at 11:25. The sun will set this evening at 6:53 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6 minutes after 6. And the outlook is calling for light to moderate east to northeasterly winds and seas through Wednesday morning. And that's the very latest on your weather report.
Takes a
advice from your Aunt Angie. Don't lie on your resume. Because if you say you've got trapeze experience, someone might shoot you out of a cannon and expect you to do a gymnast routine while flying through the air at 82 miles an hour. And just because you want to land on your feet doesn't mean you will. But if you're smart, you'll have CG medical insurance, so you get the best coverage for the price.
Get the best coverage for the price. CG Brit-K. Good like that. All benefits are subject to policy provisions, including eligibility at the time of service.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by
CG Brit-K, where people come first.
Undetected ear, nose, and throat problems can impede a child's overall progress in school and affect their physical, emotional, and social well-being. Pediatric ENT screening can help safeguard children's well-being and growth. An ENT checkup is a comprehensive examination of the ears, nose, and throat, looking for abnormalities or potential health problems. Untreated ENT problems can lead to recurrent infections, hearing loss, developmental delays, and impaired academic performance. By identifying and addressing these issues promptly, you can ensure better health outcomes and support the overall development of children.
Homeowners, protecting your family and property is crucial during the season, and you should always assess insurance needs long before a storm makes landfall. Most insurers won't issue new policies or increases when a storm is imminent. Cayman Insurance Center's team of professionals can help owners like you find the most comprehensive coverage and competitive rates. Call the insurance professionals at Cayman Insurance Center 949-4657 or email info@cic.com.ky. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Call Cayman Insurance Center's insurance professionals today at 949-4657.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
Good morning once again. Let's take a look this time at how your traffic is shaping up this morning. Steady bit flowing traffic on the Linford Pearson Highway and coming off of Agnes Way, and steady bit flowing traffic on Bobby Thompson Way, and slow moving traffic on Crew Road heading to Georgetown. Slight delays expected. Moderate flow of traffic heading east on Crew Road. Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue traffic is flowing at a good pace in both directions. As you look to the West Bay four-way stop, traffic is moving on moderately. On the West Bay Road in front of the Ritz, traffic is moderate in both directions. And heading towards the Industrial Park area, traffic flowing pretty good. North Sound Road, in both directions, traffic is moving on moderately. And coming off of the Esley Tibbetts Highway, moderate flow of traffic. That's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes past 12. We'll give you another look at traffic.
Summer's heating up, and so are the good times. Whether you are out on the water, enjoying the beach, or gathering with colleagues for an office bash, make it a feast to remember with Subway. From assorted sandwich platters to mouth-watering cookies, our catering menu has something for everyone. Perfect for groups of 5 or more. For food that's fresh, fast, and perfect for any occasion, choose Subway Catering. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
Before, during, and after a storm, the Water Authority will use all available media channels, including social media, to advise the public of when the water supply is connected and safe to use. For more useful hurricane preparedness tips, visit the Water Authority's website at www.waterauthority.ky or follow us on social media.
The Ministry of Education Passport and Corporate Services Office remind all students traveling to and from school overseas to ensure their passports are valid for both travel and entry into their destination country. Passports should be renewed at least 10 weeks before departure, and any necessary student visas must be obtained. For passport services, contact the Passport and Corporate Services Office at 649-7678. For Ministry of Education scholarship inquiries, contact scholarships@gov.ky. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Education and the Passport and Corporate Services Office.
the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. As I said earlier, on Friday, the 9th of August, the Ministry of Health and Wellness issued an advisory on the Orrett virus, and it began by stating that the Pan American Health Organization, known by the acronym PAHO, has issued a warning that the risk of transmission of the Orrett virus in Central and South America and the Caribbean is now of significant concerns. And as a result of that, the ministry issued an advisory notice to residents of the Cayman Islands to warn them of this development. Here in the studio to talk more about this development is none other than Dr. Nick Gent, who is the Chief Medical Officer, and also with him, Miss Rachel Corbett. Lady and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning, Orrett. How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
Good.
Good to see you, even under the circumstances, because we know that you're going to offer, sage and informed advice to our listening audience as well.
Well, I hope we're going to be able to at least be transparent about what we know.
Yes.
The advice, we hope, is the best that we can offer at the present time in what is an emerging situation, and something we're keeping a very, very close eye on, and just to make sure that people in the Cayman Islands know what's happening around us, knows what the risks are potentially to those of us who enjoy living here, and giving advice about what we think are the best methods of keeping yourself safe at the minute.
And to the extent that globalization and world travel has impacted so much of what we do, how we do it, when we do it, as well. At some point in time, we'd like you to speak to the impacts of that. But we want to give Ms. Rachel an opportunity, to say hello and her introductory remarks as well.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. It's great to be back. So this is something which it's not a new virus, something that's been around for a while, but there's been some changes in the epidemiology of what we're seeing, and that is what has led to the risk assessment from PAHO increasing. And therefore the risk to other places in the region, particularly in the Americas, increasing as well. So that's what we're going to be explaining a bit about this morning.
Okay, mic is yours. Go ahead.
Well, if I start with talking about the virus and the illness itself, and then if Ms. Rachel can tell us a little bit more about the epidemiology in the region, and we'll work our way through to what to do it and what to avoid at the end of that, I think is a good idea. As Ms. Rachel said, Orrett virus has been known in the region, and it is a very close connection with the Caribbean. It was first discovered mid 1950s in Trinidad, but has then subsequently turned up, particularly in South America and in the Amazonian regions and Brazil. And that's because its life cycle is closely associated with being sustained in the animal population around the forestations of Brazil and the Amazonias, and then transmitted into humans via a wide range of potential vectors. And I can go into those after Ms. Rachel's talked about other things about those particular vectors and what we have in the Cayman Islands. It's one of a range of viral diseases that produces very, very similar symptoms to each other. It's usually people become ill 3 to 8, 9, 10 days after being bitten by an infected midge or mosquito species that's capable of transmitting this virus. And it gives the usual kind of viral infection kind of symptoms of fever, muscle pains, aches in the joints, headache potentially, sometimes a bit of gastroenteritis kind of symptoms as well. In fact, all of the things we've come to know and love really about dengue fever. And what we're realising now is that whereas at one time we thought we had one or two simple viruses that would cause similar symptoms, the dengue-like symptoms, we've now got a whole host of viruses that give these kind of symptoms. Orrett is one, dengue is of course the other, but also chikungunya, Zika, mariovirus, and there's a number of these that are hosted by different animal populations and the like, and circulate between animals and humans, but rarely transmit human to human. So in that respect, one of the reasons that we're seeing outbreaks is possibly more because we're very able to detect these separate viruses now, whereas in the past we would simply diagnose things on a clinical basis, and so probably over ascribe infections to one particular virus. It's now clear that we've got a whole load of different viruses. A good example, for instance, is every time we get respiratory infections now, everybody jumps up to assume that they've got COVID. In practice, in terms of serious respiratory infections we've tested in the last year, COVID is the third down the list. Influenza and the traditional cold viruses are there, and they're responsible for 2/3 of infections now. And we're seeing the same kind of thing with the mosquito and the midge-borne infections that previously would have said, oh, it's probably dengue, but now it's not. And we're very fortunate here in the Cayman Islands. We've got the molecular laboratory, and Jonathan and his team have been able to produce very, very good panel of screening tests, so that we can routinely, if somebody comes in with something that what people think is a dengue fever, routinely we will now test for COVID, influenza, dengue, chikungunya, Zika, mariovirus, yellow fever, malaria. We will routine, and it comes to this globalization issue that we're now routinely testing for malaria, which we might not have done at one time. And within the next few weeks, we'll have Orrett in that panel as well, because we've managed to obtain all the testing materials and so on. But as I say, viral-like illness can be quite unpleasant. It usually is self-limiting. There's no specific treatment. There's no vaccine for it, and people usually recover very, very well within 3 to 4 days. Sometimes a little bit of muscle ache and weakness for a few weeks, but people usually recover very, very well. The concern that we've got here, though, now is that we're starting to see because of the scale of the epidemic in South America, we're starting to see one or two concerning things, particularly impacts on the fetus in pregnant women. Still rare, but we're seeing one or two things like that, and that's making us think a little bit more carefully, especially about the advice we'll give people. But anyway, if I turn over to Miss Rachel, because I've talked far too long here, and we turn over to Miss Rachel, and she'll tell us a bit about more of the epidemiology and what we're seeing around the Americas.
Sure. So over the past few decades, there's been outbreaks ongoing in the Amazon region. That's where transmission is kind of continuously occurring. That's where Orrett fever is endemic. But what we've seen this year in 2024 is transmission occurring in other areas of Brazil outside of the Amazon region, but also there have been cases detected in Cuba. So there's clear transmission and movement that's happened there outside of that initial area and to places which have never detected cases of Orrett fever in the past. So that's one of the clear indicators that this is much more widespread now than it has been in the past, and that also tells us that it's likely that there are cases occurring in other places that maybe haven't detected them yet, when you've got kind of that level of shift in transmission moving around. So far this year, since the beginning of the year, there have been around 8,000 cases that have been reported. So these have been predominantly in Brazil, so over 7,000 have been in Brazil, but also in Bolivia, Colombia, Peru and Cuba, as I mentioned. We've also had the first notification where transmission is thought to be vertical, so from mother to child. And for the first time, there have also been 2 deaths where the death has been attributed to Orrett virus, and that again has never happened in the past. So there's been a few different indicators of a worsening picture, and that then kind of increases the risk assessment for other countries and for the region generally. So those are the kind of the things of why the PAHO assessment's gone from moderate to high for the region of Americas, as well as what CMO was saying. There are some other investigations looking into outcomes of fetuses. There have been some deaths and some possible cases of microcephaly that may have also been linked to the Orrett virus. So similar to the Zika outbreak that was occurring in 2015 to 16. So that's something else that's under investigation at the moment for them to understand what the risk is there.
Okay, Doc?
Yeah, so on the back of that really good description, I think that the question comes, what does that mean for those of us living in the Cayman Islands? And I split this into two areas. The first one is we don't have any evidence that infection is present in any host animal population in the Cayman Islands at the present time, which would be capable of sustaining and making this an endemic infection. So the principal risk at the present time is when people are travelling, and if they're travelling to Central and South America or travelling to Cuba, they need to be aware that they are at an increased risk of infection. But also, these are areas where we're seeing things like chikungunya, Zika as well. So there's always an increased risk from mosquito and midge-borne infections when we visit any of these areas. So the usual advice is, to avoid biting as far as possible. I know the weather's too good, but the long trousers, long sleeves, using repellents, particularly DEET-based repellents, are really, really useful. When we're talking about mosquitoes, very often we're thinking of mosquitoes as biting, dawn and dusk feeding, and the ones that we usually get most trouble, bothered about in the Cayman Islands. That's true, but also when you've got things like the midges and you've got other mosquito species that will feed throughout the day, it's not quite as clear, that dawn dusk thing, especially when you're traveling overseas. But avoiding bites should be thinking about. And if you're pregnant, you should be thinking about whether or not, when look up on the PAHO websites and things like that to see where the highest risk areas are. And if you want to travel to one of those high risk areas and you're pregnant, possibly think about deferring your travel there until after you've delivered the little one. And then we need to think about Cayman Islands itself and what the risk is here. Well, as I say, currently we don't have any evidence of infection in animal species which could host. So we're thinking the most immediate risk is probably returning travellers. Okay. But as I've said, we've got that testing regime that's in place now, and I encourage anybody that's got fever and either muscle pains or joint pains, simple as that. Let's not go into too complicated a diagnosis. To come forward and get testing, please call the public health department or go and see your local doctor. These are public health tests. We don't charge for them because it's important that we're protecting against disease incursions here. So things like these kind of diseases, we don't charge for testing. Sometimes that's a bit of a confusion for people and puts them off. But don't we? And all our clinical staff out there, please bear that in mind. Please don't turn patients away when we're doing public health testing. The next thing, though, that we look at is what do we need to do that if we've got cases that come in, what's the risk of localized spread and transmission? Well, it's pretty unlikely. We've never seen direct person-to-person spread, but it's quite possible that we could see localized, within household spread or between local households, because we've got a lot of the competent vectors. Those are the things that can transmit the infection, principally between animal populations and human populations, but potentially also person to person. And we're looking, especially at the minute, at the Culicoides species. Those are the sandflies. We've got about 30-odd species of sandflies in the Cayman Islands.
Oh.
So we don't
didn't realise that, because I can't tell the difference between the bite. They all bite.
None of them are much fun, are they? But yeah, you'd be amazed if you looked at between the midges and the mosquito populations that we've got in the Cayman Islands. There's an awful lot out there. And we don't control the sandflies, but we are looking at potentially having a reserve of what we might be able to do to control sandflies if they became a problem. But we're not thinking they're a problem at the minute. We're also looking at what's happening in other countries. So if we look up at Cuba, we can see that the mosquito that's spreading disease there is the Culex quinquefasciatus, and that's present here across all three islands. So we have a little bit of concern. Put it in context. It's not here and endemic in the animal populations. It's principally going to be an issue of people traveling in. We're not hugely worried at the present time. Let's put this in context. But we also do know that we have got vectors which will effectively transmit this virus if we do get it in the animal population, and we do get introductions which pass it over to the animal population. So we're not too worried, but we're cautious, and we're particularly being careful to say to travellers, if you're going to these areas, and especially if you're pregnant, take advice.
With that, we're going to take a commercial break, folks, to remind you that in the studio we have with us the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Nick Gent, and Miss Rachel Corbett, who's an epidemiologist here in the Cayman Islands as well. We're talking about the Orrett virus, and we will discuss it more when we return from this commercial break, so please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers, a compounding story.
I don't think people realize how pain creeps into your life. It has a way of robbing your strength. I really don't like taking prescription medication orally.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. They understand.
When it comes to compounded medication, it's personal. So whenever there's a problem with some medication or treatments that's not working right, then a physician will call me and say, hey, they're having bad side effects from this medication.
Compounding pain cream changed the game. Made special for me. Significant pain relief in the form of a cream. That is a new experience for me.
It's changed his life.
It worked.
Ask your pharmacist or healthcare provider about compounding at West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Call 914-6449.
Can you imagine your home completely organized? At Brand Source Custom Closets, we can. We specialize in designing and building custom closets and storage units for any room in your home, including the garage. With tailored designs and custom LED lighting solutions to fit your lifestyle and budget. Our Custom Closets expert is committed to enhancing the value of your home with a solution that is uniquely yours. Visit our showroom or call 623-6774 to schedule a no-obligation appointment with our design expert. Brand Source Custom Closets, 209 Dorothy Drive, Industrial Park.
Get your child ready for the new school year with Total Health in Grand Pavilion. Total Health's comprehensive back-to-school checkups include ENT, eye, and dental pediatric exams. Ensure your child's health with a complete health report card before school begins. Contact Total Health today at 333-2222 or visit totalhealth.ky to schedule your child's back-to-school checkup. Total Health, where wellness meets education, because every child deserves a healthy start.
You can now renew your driver's license or motor vehicle license online, and you don't need an ESID number. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Visit www.dvdl.gov.ky.
This is For the Record.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Miss Rachel Corbett, who is an epidemiologist here in the Cayman Islands with the Cayman Islands government, and Dr. Nick Gent, the Chief Medical Officer. We're talking about the Orrett virus. And again, this is an example of the Cayman Islands government getting ahead of things, not being alarmist, putting out information that you hopefully will find helpful either in your travels or in your experiences here in the Cayman Islands as well. So I'm going to hand it back over to the experts.
That's kind of you to give that introduction, and I think there is a really important point there, and that is that we do, when we come on shows like this, when we put out press releases like this, it's anticipatory. Mm-hmm. We're not saying, there's a dreadful problem and this is going to be very significant whatsoever. It's us trying to be as transparent as possible. People will read in, particularly international news, stories about these things, but making the context sensitive to the Cayman Islands. And you can see, for instance, in this respect, we're looking at it from a perspective of things like travel, knowing where various diasporas live and regularly travel between. We're looking at it in context of what's the possibility of incursion and establishment of disease. We're looking at it in terms of the vectors. So whether or not, even if it became established, whether there's a possibility it could then become a regularly established disease. And just taking people along with us in that thinking cycle rather than, sort of 5 years later saying, oh, well, we thought that might happen, which is not the way you do things anymore. The old-fashioned paternalistic, pat on the head, don't worry about it, but we're not particularly worried, but we can certainly see that it's very likely that we're going to see incursions of disease, like we've been seeing with dengue. I fully expect this year that we'll start to see, little groups of dengue cases arising in people returning from various places, and start to see within and between household transmission in limited local areas. And then people can know that once we see that, and we see something that's a vector disease like that we will try and clamp down on it very very quickly to make sure there's elimination. I mean, we can't just eliminate the vector population. That's not reasonable. But being able to find those little outbreaks, control them quickly, and make sure that we've got on top of things, and then people know ahead of time that that's what we're trying to do. In that respect, we can't get away from sitting in front of a microphone without saying, please, please, please make sure that you're doing the household hygiene stuff about the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which transmits the particularly dengue, but is also a potential vector for a number of other infections. It's cleaning the backyard, making sure there's no standing water there, shaking off the tarpaulins, turning the buckets over, making sure the water in the flower vase is changed regularly. Sorry, somebody keeps trying to ring me. I apologise, whoever's trying to ring me, especially if you're trying to tell me I'm talking nonsense. So, that vector control, really important, and it's not just for the Orrett, but also for dengue and lots of other things. But that's what we're trying to do, is keep at people, let them know, but let them know what's changing, let them know what the risks are, and particularly that little message, particularly at the present time, where we think there might be hazard, probably the pregnant ladies travelling.
One of our listeners wanted to know whether or if you believe that global warming will have any impact on the spread of some of these diseases.
It's a really, really interesting question, and I think over the kind of past few decades, there has been in some areas of the world, you can see evidence changing of temperatures, and that's one of the factors that will determine where different insects and vectors can be. So there is concern in areas of Europe that with changing temperatures that there will be more habitable for different insects and vectors, and that can then lead to there being different infections transmitting more easily. So I think there is definitely concern around it, but I think at the moment the bigger impact is actually the global movement of people and how interconnected the world is. Is I would say is a much has a much stronger effect, and also how people are interacting with the physical environment and things like deforestation and how the maybe patterns of movement or where people are living is changing. That can lead to things that are zoonotic infections that pass from animal to humans, or have a vector involved in the transmission, spreading much more easily with those change of dynamics of how we interact with the spaces around us.
What about the life cycle of the Orrett virus?
Interesting one. It's quite complex. It has two essential life cycles. One that we conventionally refer to as the Sylvanian life cycle. Sylvanian just means in woodland, and this is the life cycle that sustains it in things like sloths. Interestingly, we don't normally come across too many zoonoses from the sloth population, but this is one of them, and the non-human primates. The new will monkeys and the like.
Some birds as well.
Yep, it certainly can, and you can see it in rodents, and there are some rodents that we host in the Cayman Islands that are a potential population as well. So it conventionally passes between these animals. They don't get particularly unwell. They sustain the virus, and then you get it transferring into the vector population around the urban population. So you've got the urban, and you've got the woodland circulation in animals, and then it breaks out into an urban circulation where you get transfer to humans and potentially other animals in the urban in towns and cities, although it's not as well sustained there, and so it's primarily in the forested area and the non-human primate population, and then the occasional breakout from there that we see problems.
Can you again repeat about our testing ability here in the Cayman Islands, and how it is enhanced, and what we now are capable of doing, and what we will be doing in the future as well?
Sure, yeah, very happy to. So we've been really focusing a lot of effort, and our team at the Cayman Islands Molecular Biology Laboratory have been working really hard to bring aboard new tests so that we don't have to send samples overseas for things that we really want to have quicker turnaround times and more information on. So one of those areas of testing has been for arboviral infections, which is what Orrett is. So we now have a panel that can test for dengue, for Zika, for chikungunya, and for Marovirus. And whenever someone presents with fever and muscle ache or one of the other symptoms, samples will be provided, and they'll be tested for that panel as well as malaria. And so having that broad range gives us a lot more information on what could be being transmitted, and we currently have the different elements of the testing for Orrett here, and the team is just validating that test as quite a thorough process that you go through to make sure before you start using it systematically that it's detecting samples that are positive and it's not detecting samples that are negative. So they're just going through that thorough process for us now. So we're hoping that Orrett can then be added to that panel in the coming weeks, so that we can be sure to catch any early incursions that are likely travel related that we may see.
Sounds great. With that, we'll take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the people's station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
The DVDL Customer Support Unit is now open. Customers can book appointments for written and driving tests through DVDL's hotline at 945-8344. That's 945-8344.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. My pleasure to have in the studio with me epidemiologist Ms. Rachel Corbett and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Nick Gent. We're talking about the Orrett virus. They're going to be with us until 9:15. If you have any other questions or comments in about this particular virus or about any other thing medical that the good Chief Medical Officer can address, please feel free to do so. Our phone lines are open. Our toll-free number 1-800-534-8255. Also 949-8037, 949-6990. Our WhatsApp number 925-3261. You can call on that number or you can send us a message as well. We're not only going to we're not restricting the discussion just to the Orrett virus, but we also want to talk about other initiatives that are taking place as far as the Ministry of Health is concerned, and also to reassure our listening, viewing audience, that again, this is an example of the ministry, of the government getting ahead of things, not waiting until something arrives on our doorsteps, but to give you the information that you need if you're traveling or if you're right here at home and if you experience some symptoms, as well. So, folks, back over to you.
Okay. Yeah, well, it really follows on from your point about globalization and travel. People now are traveling in incubation periods of infections and arriving at destinations before infections become apparent, which is something that wasn't happening until relatively recently. So it's changing very much the kind of threats that we might see. Small introductions, but we don't want small introductions to become big outbreaks. And so we're having to do a number of things to do that. Firstly, was taking advantage of the post-COVID, of having developed large-scale molecular diagnostic capability. And instead of, sort of it being, so now it's not a lab that can just process hundreds of specimens for one disease at a time, but it's more likely that we're now processing, a small group of people's specimens, but for a large number of diseases. So it's changing the working parameters, and now we're very much moving away from clinician to guess at what the likely infection is, and ask for a test about that. But we're testing symptomatically on groups of infections. So we say about our dengue panel, it's not really dengue. It's about febrile infections, particularly in people who have recently travelled to or returned to the Cayman Islands from a particular endemic area. But we also have panels for respiratory diseases, so that lets us keep an eye on what kinds of infections are out there. And in a previous segment in the programme, I mentioned that, for instance, although everybody thinks a respiratory illness is COVID, it's actually only 1 in 3, less than 1 in 3 respiratory infections are now COVID, and influenza's back there, RSV's back there, all the adenoenteroviruses, they're all back with us, and so on. And we have a panel which covers those completely. We also have emerging work around gastroenteritis infections, and we've introducing some far more specialised ones. So part of our work looks forward at risk assessment as to what might be likely, and we when we put our heads together with a number of colleagues around the Cayman Islands last year, we targeted the avian influenza viruses as being a particular risk. It's fascinating to see the emerging story in North America, where there is a huge outbreak of avian influenza viruses in dairy cattle, which was completely unexpected. We're not that bright. We didn't envisage that, but we did envisage the avian flyways, the migratory flyways, becoming a potential source of infection, which they have done. And we actually have a validated avian influenza virus panel now as well to help us with that. Another good example of globalization, where we've taken a stance that we need diagnostic ability, is monkeypox, as it used to be called. We call it mpox now, because you don't catch it from monkeys. Monkeys, non-human primates in Africa are a reservoir, but it's a very capable infection of spreading person to person to person. And again, a good example of that, we never saw mpox outside of Africa 10, 20 years ago. We never saw it because people got through being infected and their illness stage and became non-infectious before they travelled out of, those Central African regions around the Congo. Now it's a complete difference. I remember seeing a David Attenborough documentary when from the 1960s, when he travelled to parts of Sierra Leone that I'd actually worked in during Ebola, and this wonderful story of how it took 6 to 8 weeks to get there, fording rivers and everything else. A helicopter was dropping me off there in 40 minutes when I was working there. The travel time, and even if I had to catch the road back, there was a good road that took 3-4 hours. Not that 6 weeks. And that change, the geography, the travel, the numbers of people travelling, where they're travelling to and from. I mean, you look at the diaspora that we have in the Cayman Islands, European, North American, Central, South American, Philippines, India, Africa. The Cayman Islands are a real focus for everything potentially to pop in and out, and we need to anticipate that. That's what we've been doing at the moment.
Yeah, and this question will fit into that. It's a 2-part question actually. So the person says, please ask your public health guests if, with the new school year approaching, can young people or adults take any natural remedies or supplements to boost or make their immune systems more resilient. And then they go on to say also, if Caymanian residents are traveling to South America or Africa, can they take any shots or precautions to ward off the Oropouche infection?
Okay, all good questions. Yes. The school year is always an interesting time because it's a time where people have been apart and then they remix. And it's not unusual to see upsurges of infections at that time. Mm-hmm. Respiratory infections, chickenpox would be top of my list. We're very, very cautious about measles and incursions of measles, still having seen what's happened in Europe and North America at the present time. So we'll see those things. Any other infections I've missed out that are common there around the school year?
I think you've got the main ones. That
okay, that's good. It's good. It's really Miss Rachel's subject. This, but I was picking it up because of the natural remedies kind of thing. Mm-hmm. If you've got a good diet, you don't need any supplements. Some people will need some supplements. Usually, if they're a bit older. Yeah. People who have got darker skins will quite often need vitamin D supplementation. People who've had operations on their bowel, for instance, for weight loss operations and so on, they can reduce their vitamin uptakes. People who have got diets which, for whatever reason, personal choice, allergy, whatever, restrict things such as, say, milk and milk-based products, then you can quite often lose a lot of fat-soluble vitamins. So if you can't have a normal diet, then it's worth speaking to a health professional about whether or not there's a need for supplementation. And there's no supplements, as far as I know, are going to protect you against Oropouche. Otherwise, would have probably mentioned that right at it. But good question. Please do ask all those questions. But I can't help saying, when I talk about good diet, I'm talking about a diet which is balanced in terms of all its components, whether it, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and in particular, we know from the STEP survey, people are very rarely taking anything like the quantities of fruit and vegetables in their diet, which are really important sources of certain vitamins and certain supplements. I think, and Miss Rachel will remind me because she was the queen of the STEP survey, where we talk about normally about 5 portions of fruit and vegetables. In Cayman, the average was? On average, it's between 1 and 1.5 of fruit and 1 and 1.5 of vegetables a day, each. And I think there'll be some variation in that as well. And really, that's not changed since the survey was done in 2012. So that's something to consider of how we try and encourage more of that in people's diets. Yeah.
Now, did we break that down to local fruit as opposed to imported? Because I'll tell you this much. Right now, I'm planning on going to South Carolina, and I'm looking forward to eating peaches over there because they're going to become natural. Yes. Yeah. If I purchase them in a store here, and you put them to ripe, because they're usually green and sometimes even semi-frozen, I'm not attracted to them because they're not the same. So did you break down the question? And then, of course, Hurricane Beryl didn't do a whole lot in terms of our local fruits this season, this season as well. So I know we have to go to our headline news. So let's go to that. And when we return, we can talk more about that, and I suspect that you may be here a little bit longer than 9:15. No but if you have other commitments, please let me know, and we can let you go. So and I want to remind our listeners, the phone lines are open if you want to call in as well. Our toll-free number 1-800-534-8255. 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp number 925-3261. In the studio is epidemiologist Ms. Rachel Corbett and the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Nick Gent. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
radio station. Radio Cayman is the voice of the Cayman Islands. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines. Local, regional, international news.
The Headline News is brought to you by Kirk Market and Health Services Authority.
In your headlines, a couple charged with illegal landing will stand trial for human smuggling with or without their participation. Despite the court's advice to obtain legal counsel, the couple remains unrepresented and has reportedly not cooperated with the courts or investigations. Chief Magistrate Angela Hernandez has noted the trial will proceed on the 15th and 16th of August. In international headlines, a major forest fire was raging out of control on the northern fringes of the Greek capital today, triggering numerous evacuation orders for Athens, suburbs, and outlying areas, as strong winds hampered the efforts of hundreds of firefighters and dozens of water-dropping planes. The blaze that began Sunday afternoon was racing through pine forests, left tinder dry by repeated heat waves this summer. June and July this year were the hottest months ever recorded in Greece, which also recorded its warmest winter ever. London's Metropolitan Police say a man has been arrested after an 11-year-old girl and a 34-year-old woman were stabbed in central London. The attack occurred in Leicester Square, which is heavily visited by tourists this time of year. Police say the two victims were taken to the hospital. The extent of their injuries was not immediately clear. Those are your headlines. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman. More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
The Health Services Authority has over 120 world-class physicians offering the most comprehensive range of specialist services on island. Our dedicated team of professionals provide the highest quality care in orthopedics, interventional radiology, women's health, geriatrics, and a host of other specialist areas. We are a JCI-accredited organization with a proven record of excellence. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you. For more information, visit hsa.ky.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Nick Gent and epidemiologist Ms. Rachel Corbett. We're talking about the Orrett virus, and one of our listeners has written in and said very interesting, very informative conversation. And then they asked the question, can you please spell out the name of the virus? So we'll do that first, and that is Oropouche. Oropouche. And then they wanted to know the mosquitoes which can spread it as well. I think in scientific terms we talk about vectors. The vectors.
We do,
that will carry it, as well. And they're curious to know the origin of the name Oropouche. Where did it come from?
That comes from where it was first detected. So Orrett virus was first known about in 1955, and it was detected in Trinidad and very close to the Orrett River, which is where the name came from, which is often the case with new kind of emerging viruses, things like Ebola. That was also named after the Ebola River. So that is the name, and I'll pass to CMO to spell out the vectors for you.
Okay, we could be here a long time talking about the potential vectors. The vectors that we are bothered about most relevant to the Cayman Islands are something called the Culicoides species sandfly And the midge vector, but one that's most particularly associated with the transmission, is one called Culicoides paraenesis. If you're really wanting to know those kind of things, there are other mosquito vectors that are associated with that sylvatic cycle that I talked about, that come from the Ochlerotatus genus. And the mosquito vectors that we probably are going to be most bothered about if we were going to get infections around the Cayman Islands would be the particular Culex species, which is responsible for infections in Cuba, which is the Culex quinquefasciatus. And of course, on the Cayman Islands, our old friend Aedes aegypti, which is I'm increasingly calling the domestic mosquito, particularly to get across to people. This is one we can't control by spraying places. We can't control by fogging. Really, this is the one that is household based, that we need to deal with. And indeed, the Culicoides midges that we're going, are ones which really respond to just very localized management.
And there was a question before the break as well, I think, about someone travelling and concerns about whether they can get, I think they said, an Orrett shot for going to South America or Africa. There is no vaccine at the moment for Orrett. So there isn't anything that you can get to prevent getting the disease that way. There are measures that you can take, which we've spoken about, of using sprays, and if you're staying in some places, using nets and wearing long clothes, but do avoid travelling to South America if you are pregnant or looking to conceive soon. That is some advice we'd give. But if you are travelling to South America or to Africa, reach out to the public health team for the travel-related advice. There are other things to be aware of and other shots that you might need.
Yes, especially malaria if you're going to Africa, please, and parts of Central and South America. There are particular forms of malaria, particularly falciparum malaria, which are rapidly fatal. And so getting advice, you've really, really got to watch the mosquito control when you're in certain parts. You must be taking anti-malarial medicines, and if you return from a malaria zone within 2 weeks and you've got a fever, that's a medical emergency and you need testing.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Rachel, you pointed out that there is no vaccine for it. Is there a reason why a vaccine hasn't been developed? Is it because it is maybe not as widespread and prevalent or as deadly as other viruses?
I think some of those elements would have been factors. When in the past transmission has very much been in one localized area, then that might not be the focus of teams that are looking to develop vaccines, and it's not necessarily the area where maybe a lot of funding for that would be happening. So I'm sure that is an aspect as well. And it also comes down to severity of disease. Typically it has in the past been quite mild, but this is the first time, we were saying before, that we've been notified of any deaths related to Orrett, and so that is something which pushes up the risk assessment, and again will push up as a priority. There are lots of things that are in vaccine development, and that's always a challenge to work out what's priority and where to put the funding. And if something isn't producing such serious illness and it can generally self-resolve, then it won't be such a high priority on that kind of global scale. Okay.
Can we go back to the discussion that we had? We started before the commercial break about the fruit and about the study that was conducted, and are there any recommendations that you could make or advice to give in terms of how do we go about, because we're surrounded in the Caribbean by other Caribbean countries where the commonality of certain fruits is quite prevalent. But also at the same time, many of us, almost all, are in the hurricane belt. Mm-hmm. So when one is affected by a hurricane, almost all others are affected, as well. So the whole chain, is broken. And any advice that can be given in that regard to consumption, local consumption, or how do we acquire those things when we're affected by natural disasters?
It's one of the really sad things about Barrel locally, wasn't it? That that we lost so much fruit, lost the avocados. It wasn't the same time of year this year, was it, as last year when we were inundated with good quality fruit? Yes. And that's sad. But we're not saying, fruit and vegetables. We're saying 5 portions of fruit or vegetables. Okay. So, we've just got to shift our diet. And particular green vegetables are incredibly important. Folks, potatoes, Irish potatoes, especially fried, are not a portion of fruit and vegetables. Okay, sorry to tell you that one. But you've just got, it's a question of getting to market, seeing what's happening. Those fruit and vegetable stalls that side of the road all around the Cayman Islands. And just because you've never cooked with something like that, that might be there and in season, go for it. I mean, and particularly a lot of the older Caymanians really know the stuff about these things, and there's some lovely stuff. I mean, working in West Africa, I got very fond of cassava, but do many younger people, apart from in heavy cake, which I'm not sure. And again, I have to say, a portion of heavy cake is not a portion of fruit and veg. Unfortunately, folks. But there's lots of things, and it's a case of grabbing what there is and shifting diet, please, folks. I mean, too much of the processed food, too much of the fast food. Keep looking to make so many days a week about local food, and particularly using a lot of local vegetables. We got to get away from the old Caymanian saying, isn't it, when some vegetables get put on the plate, what do you think that is? Do you think I'm a goat? No, folks, it's essential to the diet. It really, really is important. And I'm picking up all these lovely phrases that we're getting given by people about traditional diet, but. Yep, there's lots of good stuff around. I know it sometimes might not be the cheapest, but look at what's seasonal. Seasonal stuff tends to be affordable. It's the unseasonal, it's the imported stuff. Well, we don't necessarily need that imported stuff for that part of it. Lots of things we have to import. We have to import a lot of dairy products, for instance. There's a lot of red meat products if you eat red meat particularly. But also look at the fact that we've got dietarily extremely good quality fish. Which are hugely important in a good, well-balanced diet, and so on. So it's take advantage of what there is. Maybe don't think, I've always eaten this way, I've got to continue eating that way, or I don't use my imagination. Use your imagination. Go and try something different. Once a week, try something different. And you never know, after 6 months, you might be finding your diet is completely different.
Yeah, and it's as much as you can, it's great to eat the local fresh produce. But we do, as a backup, we do also have a lot of frozen vegetables, and getting frozen spinach into a main big dish that you're cooking, kind of sneaking in hidden veg, is an excellent into keeping. Caymanian cuisine, it's not that you have to completely change all of what you eat. You can keep your food culture that's there, but it's seeing what small tweaks you can make to get veg into that.
Yeah, I remember that farming methods these days are usually taking from harvest to frozen, within a very short period of time. And that is preserving a lot of the vitamins and the nutrients that we want to see. So, at one time frozen was, had a bad name, but now, no, frozen stuff, particularly buying it in, large freezer bags, getting the economy, right, buying large and cheap is a good way of doing it. I certainly keep. 3 or 4 different vegetables in the freezer. Get home late, haven't got time to do some shopping. I can still make a healthy meal.
One of our listeners seeking an opinion on our breadfruit here in the Cayman Islands, and whether or not any sort of analysis has been done as far as our breadfruit is concerned, to determine the nutritional value of our breadfruit and the fact that, it is so plentiful, at some given times.
Yeah, it's a good vegetable. It's got plenty of fibre in it. It's got a lot of important nutrients in it. I'd have to say I'm rubbish at cooking it, despite the guidance of Miss McHale, who from our referrals team, who's done her best to educate me as to how I should cook it. And I find it absolutely fascinating how it changes over several days. But yeah, again, very good example. Use what we've got, use it local, and go back to the people who've got that history and culture of cooking it to get the best recipes.
Okay. We're going to take a commercial break, and I'm extremely mindful of your time as well. So we're going to ask you to stay for an extra 15 minutes. We will let you go if you don't mind at 9:30. When we return, I want to give you an opportunity to repeat all that needs to be repeated about the Orrett virus, but also my observations as far, and you mentioned COVID earlier, and I remember when COVID was a bad word, not only in the Cayman Islands, but throughout. Yep. There was a stigma attached to COVID. Nowadays, you speak to people and they say, I just returned from traveling and I discovered that I have COVID. They're much more open now about it. And I want to get your take on that. Is it because people have reached a comfort level, a comfort zone as far as COVID is concerned because of the various treatments that are out there as well, but it is no longer as bad a word as it used to be as well. That's my personal question to you this morning as well. Folks, don't change that dial. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
There you go, sir. Thanks for choosing JN Money Transfer.
Boy, thanks to JN Money Transfer, I can stay right here in Cayman and pay mama bills back home in Jamaica. Her water, light, phone and other bills never late. Every month I pay everything in one place.
Make payments to over 30 companies in Jamaica through JN Money Transfer. Fast, affordable, convenient. Call 1-800-744-1163 for details.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers, a compounding story.
I don't think people realize how pain creeps into your life. It has a way of robbing your strength. I really don't like taking prescription medication orally.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. They understand.
When it comes to compounded medication, it's personal. So whenever there's a problem with some medication or treatments that's not working right, then a physician will call me and say, hey, they're having bad side effects from this medication.
Compounding pain cream changed the game. Made special for me. Significant pain relief in the form of a cream. That is a new experience for me.
It's changed his life.
It worked.
Ask your pharmacist or healthcare provider about compounding at West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Call 914-6449.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you're remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning with epidemiologist Ms. Rachel Corbett and the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Nick Gent, talking about the Orrett virus, getting ahead of things, giving you advice if you travel, as well, talking about the capabilities here in the Cayman Islands in terms of testing, as well. And I must say that we have been extremely fortunate in the Cayman Islands when it comes to communicable diseases in general. And it is no accident that we find ourselves in that position. A lot has to do with our level of communications, getting out there, talking to people, the testing regimes that we have in place as well, as well as our emphasis on immunization where immunization is necessary, also. Again, just my take, my editorializing, in relation to that. But I'm going to hand the mic over to both of you for the next 10 minutes. And at the end, give you an opportunity for some closing comments as well.
Sure. We'll just offer a quick recap if anyone's dialing in now, just of what we've been talking about with Orrett fever. So this is a disease that has been around for a while, first detected in 1955, but typically has been spreading in the Amazon region. And for the first time this year, there have been cases detected in Brazil outside of the Amazon, but also in Cuba and quite extensively across Cuba. So this further transmission alongside some other epidemiological information of some deaths being detected for the first time that were associated with Orrett virus is why the risk assessment has increased, and there's a high level of concern about it. It's not something that can be passed from person to person. It's a vector transmitted infection. So there are both midges, small flies, and certain types of mosquitoes that can transmit Orrett virus by its bite. And some of these vectors are found here in the Cayman Islands. We've not had any Orrett case detected so far in humans, but it's something that we are keeping an eye out for now, particularly among individuals who have travelled to South America, Central America or Cuba, and are presenting with bowel illness, so with fever or with muscle ache or joint pains. Please do contact your GP or the public health team and we'll look to get you tested. We've got a test that's currently being validated. It'll be available in the coming weeks for Orrett, but that will sit alongside our panel for other viruses, things like dengue, that present with very similar symptoms. So it's something that we're just keeping an eye out for any incursions that might be coming in the next few weeks or months.
Okay.
Yep. And alongside that, we keep up our vigilance for a range of things that we have concerns about at the minute. We're keeping an eye very closely on the avian influenza situation, both with the big outbreak in dairy cattle in North America, but also knowing that we've got migratory birds that travel through the Cayman Islands. And again, we've got validated testing so that if we had suspected case either in birds or humans, that we're able to diagnose that, and we've got good support to be doing that. And just as an example of another disease that, this horizon scanning that we do, we're keeping a very close eye on the Mpox, previously known as monkeypox, we call it Mpox now, outbreak in Africa, which is being spreading into various African countries. At a surprising rate of transmission, and is also a good illustration of the concerns we have about being a travel destination and having large diasporas from around the world. We're seeing Mpox transmitted into Europe now with people going to and from Africa. We have seen Mpox in the Cayman Islands amongst travellers from. We had one traveller from North America with Mpox a year ago. So again, we're keeping an eye on that. And again, just a reminder to clinical colleagues, if you're seeing somebody, particularly an adult with pox-like lesions, trunk, and particularly around the genitalia, please contact us. We've got validated testing for that. And there are some important consequences for how we would manage such a case, because they would need to be in isolation for a period of time and cannot travel out of the Cayman Islands until we've cleared them. Again, these are public health risks. And the testing for any public health risk like this is free of charge, because it's important, because we don't want anybody to think that I can afford that testing, whatever. We'll test and help and support you, because we want to reduce transmission in the community. We will get incursions, but we want, we want it to stop there when somebody comes in, or with very limited numbers of cases. So time is really important, but we can do testing quickly, we can give advice quickly, we can support quickly. So please, people, bear in mind any infections that they think are going to be risk of transmission to others, or where we can get localized outbreaks because of things like the mosquito population transmission. Dengue is, very much top of our list. That, lots of countries around the Caribbean where dengue is now endemic, but we've kept dengue out. We get the little transmissions in, we sit on top of it, and so on. And in that respect, please remember, everybody should once a week go and check their backyard, make sure there are no breeding grounds for the domestic mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Turn plant pots over, turn buckets over, empty water off tarpaulins, make sure that that you've changed the water in the vase with the flowers regularly, things like that. Anywhere where there's relatively fresh standing water, this is not good. So please play your bit, yourself and your neighbours, to keep that domestic mosquito population down.
Okay. Any other things that you want to talk about? The STEP survey and stuff. Where are we at?
You wanted something about. About
COVID. Yes.
We can speak about COVID a bit. So, I mean, COVID, as people now know, will just be around in the population like influenza is, and I think over the course of the pandemic and now on the other side of it, as such, people's risk perceptions of it have changed a lot. Right at the beginning, we didn't know very much, and we didn't have any vaccines, and so it was a very concerning picture at that time. And I think now individuals may have had COVID a few times, and while it might not be pleasant, they're fine, and so it's just different risk perceptions of how to handle it and all those kind of things. And we've been saying a bit while we've been on the show today that there are a lot of causes of respiratory infections. COVID isn't the only one, and it's actually not the predominant one from the data that we see in Cayman at the moment. Influenza and other causes of common colds are actually in circulation a bit more. So I think it's quite easy to feel under the weather and assume it's COVID, but it may not be. And so the advice, as ever, on those is, please don't go to work if you're symptomatic, if you're coughing. If you can, please stay at home. If you are in places with people, please try and wear a mask to prevent that transmission onwards. But really, it's here to stay, and it's working out how we live with that, and we prevent transmission where we can. Good hand hygiene is also important with that.
Yes.
Yep, it was fascinating watching it, wasn't it, in the Olympics? I mean, that people were competing with COVID, and and so on, and just to see that normalisation, which you think, 3 years ago would have thought, what do you mean? He went running with COVID, and then he got into a big group huddle afterwards. This is dreadful. But we wouldn't actually encourage that behaviour if we're being quite honest. But yes, good, respectful hygiene about any respiratory infections. If you're ill, don't be in contact with people at work or home. Keep to your household. I think sometimes people are getting a bit of a misconception about COVID, because there's still lots of COVID testing kits around. There's still lots of people who will test themselves religiously. And unfortunately, that testing kit doesn't tell you that. It might say not COVID, but it's not telling you it's influenza or whatever. So the self-testing that's going on in the community only tells people whether it's COVID. And so in some people's There's that focus. Oh, so and so tested, so and so tested, so and so tested positive, but they're not actually thinking about the other 20 people who tested negative, who had something different. But yeah, it's just here. It's to stay. Important, of course, that people who got particular vulnerabilities because of things like they've got diabetes, or for some of us who are a little bit older and greyer, this should be part of our annual immunisation programme, flu and COVID. In that respect, sometime hopefully in the coming year, we'll be looking again at what represents best sense for the immunisation programmes for people in the Cayman Islands, building on some work that we've already been doing. For instance, you'll have heard a lot of talk, I'm sure, if you're in health circles, about universal HPV vaccine and extending HPV vaccine catch-ups into older age groups. And we're dealing with some issues about supply of vaccines at the minute to make sure that that's, we can deliver on that. But there may be other elements of the immunisation programmes that we want to tweak as well in the coming year. Again, to respect the changing epidemiology. Infectious diseases. When I was at medical school, people said, "Why are you interested in infectious diseases, Nick? Haven't you heard? We've got antibiotics." Well, it's kept me in business for 40 odd years without any problems, and it continues to surprise us. And we've got to have good quality testing, which we do have. We've got to have good vigilance, which we generally do have. And we've got to have properly coordinated responses to new threats as they're coming. And part of that comes out of that horizon scanning, which is why we're here talking about Orrett.
Great. Well, I want to thank both of you again for, being so transparent in your discussion and also making yourselves available again to be out front with these potential issues that we may face as well. Folks, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the phone lines will remain open. If you have other things that you want to talk about, if it has to do with health and medical issues, you will have to wait until Dr. Nick Gent and Miss Rachel Corbett in the studio. Don't ask me those questions because I don't know anything about them. But we will have an open discussion when we return. Lots to talk about. One person did send a WhatsApp message I think last week and again today talking about advisory district councils. So maybe we will start the discussion when we return talking about that particular WhatsApp message that listener sent. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
You can now renew your driver's license or motor vehicle license online, and you don't need an ESID number. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Visit www.dvdl.gov.ky.
Did you know that you can send money transfers to financial institutions anywhere in Jamaica with JN Money?
You mean I can send money straight to my account and cut out the middleman?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. You send your own money to your own account, giving you peace of mind that the money is in your account.
JN Money Transfers to Financial Institution is another convenient service offered by JN Money. You can have this done from any JN Money location. Deposit your money straight to your account without the hassle of asking someone to do it for you. JN Money Transfers to Financial Institutions, making life easier.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers, a compounding story.
I don't think people realize how pain creeps into your life. It has a way of robbing your strength. I really don't like taking prescription medication orally.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. They understand.
When it comes to compounded medication, it's personal. So whenever there's a problem with some medication or treatments that's not working right, then a physician will call me and say, hey, they're having bad side effects from this medication.
Compounding pain cream changed the game. Made special for me. Significant pain relief in the form of a cream. That is a new experience for me.
It's changed his life.
It worked.
Ask your pharmacist or healthcare provider about compounding at West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Call 914-6449.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advance notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio. I'm going to share this WhatsApp message from one of our listeners. So the person says, on a show last week, I was disappointed to hear the West Bay men talking about district councils again for perhaps 10 years now. We were in 2014 and our constitution came into effect in 2009. So probably more than 10 years, 14 years, 15 years going on in relation to the whole issue of advisory district councils. The person goes on to write that the issue is a constitutional shame. Councils should not be politically driven, but representative of the community. They say that 3 years ago, days after election, those same person called West Bayers to a meeting at Papagallo for this purpose. Many people showed up and chatted, but organizers did not even take a roll call, much less start a district council. They like to again now make a plan, but nothing comes of their plan. So this writer is extremely critical of those who purport to advocate for advisory district councils but do nothing about it. We, of course, know and we have heard some members of parliament say that they have adopted procedures or they have formed groups that are akin or similar to advisory district councils that help to advise them and help them to formulate or to develop policies. It isn't the same, and it is extremely important that this upcoming election cycle, these are my words now, this upcoming election cycle, that the same way that you have advocated for or objected to the development of a cruise port facility, the same way that you have been vociferous about other issues, that you should do the same when it comes to advisory district councils. Like the writer has pointed out, that it is a shame, and it's really ignoring provisions of our Constitution. Now, some may say that those are not the only provisions of our constitutions that are being ignored, but we shouldn't give our politicians, current ones or aspiring ones, a pass when it comes to implementing things that will help the people of the Cayman Islands, the populace of the Cayman Islands, to allow them to share in their development, to have a say in how their districts are developed, or the Cayman Islands as a whole is developed as well. You should not be denied that opportunity, and you're being denied it when they fail to implement the provisions of our Constitution that speak to the formation of advisory district councils, the creation of a law that forms, that will allow the formation of advisory district councils. And we know that there are some politicians out there who have said, you voted for us, you elected us. We don't want now any unelected body telling us, what to do. Well, if that's the attitude that they take in relation to that, I think you should seriously consider whether or not you want to vote for those persons with those types of attitude in the upcoming elections, if you are an advocate for advisory district council. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and go back to something on the history of the Cayman Islands. In 1967, while we do have national trust here in the Cayman Islands, how many of you know that in 1967 that there was a call and a recognition of the need for the history of the Cayman Islands and the preservation of our monuments, and that there was a study that was conducted in that regard? No doubt that in 1967, while we were still relatively undeveloped and where electricity had only just recently reached, some of our districts in the Cayman Islands, that there was an article, and I'm not going to read it verbatim, but share as much as I possibly can with you in relation to this article. And it started off by saying that it was hoped to establish a form of national trust in Cayman to preserve historical monuments and to commission a serious history of the islands. This was announced by His Honor, the Administrator, Mr. John A. Cumber, on Saturday following a visit by Mr. T.A.L. Concanon, an archaeological and architectural expert who is now on contract to the Institute of Jamaica in regard to the preservation of Jamaican antiquities. His particular interest in Jamaica are Rose Hall, Devon House, and Port Royal. The administrator said that it had long been felt that a history of the Cayman Islands must be written, and he pointed out the importance of preserving historical monuments. Mr. Concannon toured Grand Cayman and was particularly interested in Pedro's Castle. He was favorably impressed with the measures, including the wooden protective roofing which the owner, Mr. Tom Hubble, had taken to preserve the ancient stonework. Let's see if there's any more to this article. I don't believe that there is much more to it, but let's talk about our preservation of our historical monuments, and not only our historical monuments, but other items of interest. We saw recently that house located, Old Cayman House located in Bogasan Road, was removed, successfully removed, and moved to the Prospect Point area. But there are also many instances where houses were demolished, and when people only realized after the demolition that they were of historical significance to the Cayman Islands. And don't forget, when we return as well, we can talk about our old fort on the waterfront and what happened with that, simply to widen a road in that area. And we now know what we have in place of the old fort that was located right on the waterfront. Folks, last commercial break. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Can you imagine your home completely organized? At Brand Source Custom Closets, we can. We specialize in designing and building custom closets and storage units for any room in your home, including the garage. With tailored designs and custom LED lighting solutions to fit your lifestyle and budget. Our custom